Hey there, my wedding planning friends, and welcome back to my channel. If this is your first time here, thanks so much for clicking on my video. I'm Emily Summer. I'm a wedding planner based in Montana, and I make weekly videos on wedding planning tips and advice. So today, as the name suggests, we're talking all about planning a wedding either as a millennial, so what are kind of common trends when it comes to planning a wedding as a millennial, how are things changing with our generation, the pieces of wedding planning and weddings as a whole that are most valued by millennials and least valued by millennials, but also not only planning as a millennial, but if you're somebody that has a lot of millennial guests that are going to be in attendance of your wedding, what's important to them, how to impress them, and just overall wedding things as millennials. So first, let's talk about trends and common themes among millennial couples when it comes to the wedding planning process as a whole. So what we're seeing amongst this generation is a lot more couples are paying for their weddings on their own or paying for a large portion of their wedding on their own. Traditionally, it is said that the bride's family is kind of financially responsible for the wedding, and while that is still somewhat true for some couples, we are seeing a lot more couples paying for their own weddings, especially in the millennial generation. When it comes to the planning process, timelines are typically a little bit longer. We are seeing about like 12 to 16 months from the time of the engagement to the time of the wedding for the wedding planning timeline and process. We're also seeing smaller wedding parties. So I've noticed a lot of couples that fall in the millennial category are opting for a little bit smaller wedding parties, so maxing out at like 5 individuals on each side for those wedding parties, or even opting to not have a wedding party at all or just have one individual standing on either side. You're also seeing traditions kind of fading away a little bit, and some traditions will always be upheld, I believe, but small things like the bouquet and garter toss are two things that I hardly ever see at weddings anymore, particularly amongst millennial couples. So just getting a little bit more out of the box when it comes to wedding planning, and the traditions that we've seen for hundreds of years are starting to change a little bit, and I think this has kind of started with the millennial generation. We're also seeing a lot of millennial couples include their pets in their weddings, so whether that is physically on site, if that's allowed at your venue at your wedding, or incorporating some piece of your wedding decor or something with your pets, so naming your signature cocktails after your pets or having personalized napkins that have photos of your pets on them, including your pets in some way, shape, or form into your millennial wedding. And I'm sure this one comes as no surprise, but we're seeing a lot of online involvement when it comes to not only the wedding planning process in itself, but kind of how you're getting inspiration, communicating with vendors, and finding vendors. So according to the Knot, about 77% of couples used Instagram to find their wedding vendors or to kind of vet their wedding vendors. And additionally, about 45% of couples watched video content to plan their wedding or get inspiration for wedding planning. So if you're unsure of kind of where to start when it comes to looking for wedding vendors in your area or wanting to see some more portfolios, obviously they should have an online presence, a website that will provide a lot more information, but definitely check out their socials, especially Instagram for more of a portfolio. But now with TikTok being as big as it is, there are many wedding vendors that are on TikTok that you can see a lot of their wedding content and just a lot of helpful information on TikTok about wedding planning as a whole as well. Now let's move into details that millennial couples care about the most and value the highest. Of millennial couples surveyed, these are the top 5 details of weddings that are most valued by millennial couples. Number 1 is new experiences. So this goes for not only if you are a millennial couple planning a wedding, but also if you're having a lot of millennial guests and you're curious about what they value the highest. Having some sort of new experience incorporated into your wedding is one of the top valued things that millennials value at weddings. Additionally, and similarly, are personal touches. So including song choices that are personal to you as a couple or kind of speak to your own personality rather than the traditional bridal marches and processional songs that we have heard so many times over the years, making that a little bit more personal, as well as personalized touches throughout your reception. So like we kind of said earlier, having pets included onto your signature cocktails or your napkins, or I recently had a couple that their cocktail napkins all had a fun fact about their relationship, about them as individuals. On each cocktail napkin was a different fun fact, and I thought that was so adorable because not only is it kind of fun and entertaining for your guests, but it's a way to bring in a lot of personal touches and kind of remind you why you're at this wedding in the first place. Other examples are having table numbers that are not just numbers. I've had some couples that will name table numbers off of places they visited together or favorite movies that they have together. Or when I had every table number was a photo of the couple at that age, which is really cute as well. So there's a lot of ways that you can get creative and be personal. Number 3, Instagrammable moments. Of course, this probably doesn't come as a surprise to anybody, but we are seeing millennial couples include some aspect of the wedding that is deemed Instagram worthy. So whether that is kind of your natural backdrop, your venue as a whole, having some sort of view that your couples are going to all flock to take photos, or creating that yourself. So creating some kind of photo backdrop, having a photo booth on site, or having some kind of sign, neon signs, floral install, something that is kind of one particular part of the wedding that everyone is going to want to take their photos at. Number 4 is fun music. We all love a fun dance floor, a good environment. At millennial weddings, we see a lot of throwbacks, a lot of late 90s, early 2000s musics, and those are pretty much always guaranteed to be a big hit and have a killer dance floor. Also popular among millennial couples are after parties, so either bringing the party downtown if you have shuttles, kind of shuttling everyone to a bar downtown or another location, or to some sort of Airbnb or house for an after party. Okay, let's talk about a couple details that millennial couples care about the least, and these probably won't come as a surprise to anyone, especially if you are a millennial watching this video, you can probably relate. Number 1 are programs. So those printed programs that you pass out at your ceremony. For a while, they were very, very popular, and now it's something that we are not really seeing very much of, and it's something that millennial couples really don't care about. So you can kind of nix that. If you're trying to find ways to cut costs and save on your budget, also saving waste, is to just nix those programs. Number 2 is the guest book. I think people have a formal guest book because they're supposed to, and that's what they're supposed to do, but that is a detail that millennial couples really don't care about. So either nixing that altogether, or having some creative way to have a version of a guest book that isn't just a physical book that guests will come in and sign and write their name that you're never going to look at again. So we see a lot more creative ideas that often involve something that the couple can use after the wedding. So displaying it in the home somehow, a printed photograph that you can sign. I've seen couples have jerseys that they had everybody sign, and something that's just a little bit more personal and unique. And number 3, bouquet and garter toss. We kind of talked about this already, but that is something that I hardly ever see at weddings anymore, especially among the millennial couples, and it kind of falls under that traditions fading a little bit. These 2 in particular are details that millennials really, really don't care about and hardly ever do. So now let's talk about things that millennial guests care about the most and least. Top 5 things that your millennial guests care about at your wedding are: number 1, fast bar service. They don't want to wait in line, so make sure that if you have a larger guest count, that you are accommodating them with the right number of bartenders. Typically, if you have over 70 to 80 guests, you should have more than 1 bartender, especially if you are having a full bar that's going to call for mixed cocktails and actually mixing drinks and not just pre-made mixes or beer and wine. You definitely want to make sure that you have enough bartenders that are going to be able to eliminate the long lines at your wedding. Number 2, jaw-dropping photo backdrop. Kind of talked about this already with the Instagrammable moment, but this is the number 2 valued thing that guests like at weddings, so that they can get their good photo ops, have their Instagram photos, and document your wedding day. Number 3 is delicious apps. They love to be fed during cocktail hour. Don't skip out on the apps during your cocktail hour. Guests are ready to eat right after the wedding, and having some delicious apps is a great way to keep them happy. Number 4, good music. Again, talked about this already, so this comes as no surprise that your millennial guests love good music at your wedding, and that goes into number 5, which is a fun dance floor. Those 2 go hand in hand, so if you're having good music at your wedding, you're likely going to have a fun dance floor, and your guests are going to be partying all night long. Now, top 5 things that your millennial guests value the least. Number 1, expensive travel costs. If you are planning a destination wedding, just be mindful of your guests and what they're going to be required to spend to attend your wedding, and don't be offended if they opt out due to the travel costs. Number 2, long bar lines. This comes as no surprise once again, as the number 1 thing they value is fast bar service. Of course, no one wants to wait in long lines. Number 3 is too many speeches. I think this probably goes for pretty much any age group, but especially with millennials, keep your speeches, your toasts short and sweet. Typically, when I'm planning a timeline for a wedding, we don't allow more than 30 minutes of speeches. That's how much I'll time out onto the timeline. That's including some buffer time. So really you don't want them to go longer than about 20 minutes total. So if you're having several people speak, just kind of have a little chat with them and make sure they don't go more than 2 to 3 minutes per toast. Number 4 is tall centerpieces that block their view. This is definitely something to keep in mind. There's tons of inspiration out there for these tall, extravagant centerpieces you can have on your table, but definitely be mindful of the shape of your table and the location that it's going to be in reference to where the action is happening. So where you guys are sitting as a couple, where your toasts are happening, or just the kind of overall community at that table. If you have really large centerpieces or tall centerpieces, you can't really see across the table, and guests like to be able to chat with each other at the table. And number 5 on the top 5 list that millennial guests value the least at weddings is a poorly timed reception. So overall, things are taking a really long time to happen. There's a lot of lag time in between, or on the flip side, you're feeling rushed through all of the events, and guests want to be able to enjoy themselves a little bit more and not have those periods of boredomness, but also don't want to be rushed between dinner and dessert and not being able to get up a drink and all of those things. So if you are a millennial getting married, or if you're somebody that plans to have a lot of millennial guests at your wedding, hopefully you found this video helpful. If you did, please like and subscribe to get weekly videos on wedding planning tips and advice, and we'll see you next week.